looking for that distinguishes them? There has to be some aspect of your theory that leads to predictions. We have to be able to do these computations that Feynman alludes to, and I just don't see it in Genesis. There's no room for computation.
I don't see that in evolution either. You yourself said this is your line of work, but you can't define what a species is. So I don't see how there's a problem.
Well, I told you precisely why. Because the process of evolution has occurred, and there are transitional stages.
I think there's another reason why. I think the Creator was smart enough to give each kind of animal a gene pool that had a variety, so they could survive in a number of different environments. So that's part of the original design code.
Well, if that were the case, why did he shortchange the cheetah, which is a large African cat, which at first blush would look to be marvelously adapted? It can run at a speed of something close to 70 miles an hour, but it seems to have virtually no genetic variation in its population. Did God have an off day, or...
No, I think the cheetah is probably swimming in the shallow end of the gene pool, as is probably the panda bear. I think the panda bear is part of the original bear kind, and it, unless drastic measures are taken, it is doomed to extinction because of numbers of factors. It is probably just like a chihuahua. A chihuahua is the shallow end of the dog gene pool. If I gave you 500 chihuahuas and told you to crossbreed them until you get back to a Great Dane, it wouldn't happen. You can't get back to a Great Dane because so much genetic information is lost. The cheetah is probably part of one of maybe several different original cat kinds, and the cheetah is indeed genetically deficient and has serious problems. I agree, but that has nothing to do with evolution, and it's not a slam on the Creator. It's just the gene pool has reached its limit, and the cheetah is right at the edge and probably will not survive. But that doesn't prove we all came from a rock, and it certainly doesn't prove the cheetah and the banana are related. It's still a cat.
I'm really struggling to see the connection between those things. But I want to bring you back to giving me something about the nature of kinds that would allow me to distinguish at the genetic level.
Okay, would you say that a goldfish and a carp are the same kind of animal?
I don't know what a kind is.
Would you say are they the same species? Is a goldfish a subspecies of the carp genus?
I would say that that's a marginal case, but I could explain probably fairly clearly in terms of the population genetics that underlies neo-Darwinian theory of why it's a marginal case. I point out also that species is not an essential concept in neo-Darwinism. It's more a concept of convenience, whereas kind is an essential concept in the Genesis hypothesis because that's what God created.
Well, I think the species is the whole argument. You've got the book in your hand over there, or on your table. That was Darwin's whole point, the origin of species. So, what is the origin of species?
It is by a process of descent with modification through insensibly distinct intermediate forms. It's a continuum. And as I mentioned earlier, that's the problem with defining species, because species, the concept of species involves the discontinuity that we observe between carp and goldfish, between red-shafted flickers and yellow-shafted flickers. And we understand that as evolutionary biologists, it's not a problem with the theory, but it seems to me that the definition of kind is at the very base of beginning to test Genesis is a theory of the diversity of life.
I would say the very same is true. The definition of species and being able to nail it down clearly and falsify it is the very base of the evolution theory. We both have the same predicament. I cannot tell you what a kind is, and I don't know that Carolus Linnaeus's classification system with kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species is the same as God's definition of kind. We today put, for instance, a whale and a dolphin in the mammal family. But the Bible may consider that a fish. After all, it does live in the water. And I don't know that it is or it isn't, but if the Bible does consider a whale in the fish kind, that would not mean the Bible is wrong. That would mean our current way of dividing animals up is different than the Bible's way of dividing animals up. That's all. You can't say one's wrong, one's right. It's just a different way of looking at it. It's like a metric system and an standard system. Also, the carp and the goldfish, I'm sure you're aware, have a different number of chromosomes.
Right. The goldfish is a tetraploid, as I recall, relative to the carp.
And the goldfish is...
And I might add that there are actually a number of cases among animals and many cases in plants where species, and I'm going to begin to put that in quotes, have different chromosome numbers and yet hybridize
Sure.
to some extent. And again, we understand how they can do that. And,
Oh, yeah, I taught biology, I understand. But the hybridization...
and that raises another interesting question about how chromosome number relates to kind and what God had in mind in that respect.
Right. I suspect you're aware that humans have 46 chromosomes and tobacco has 48. And amoebas have 50. And yet the evolution textbooks constantly say that we came from a single-celled amoeba-like creature, and yet they've already got more chromosomes than we do. They're ahead of us, not behind us.
No, whoa. Actually, I don't even know what species have the most chromosomes, but it's certainly not related to phylogenetic progression. I know of no evolutionary biologist that makes that claim.
I agree. No evolutionary biologist makes that claim because the data is so against the evolutionary theory. I've got a chart.
No. Because when we reconstruct phylogenies, which show the order of evolutionary progression, and then we map chromosome numbers on them, there is not a progression. It's not because it's inconsistent with evolutionary theory.
So don't you see how that the assumption that evolution has taken place is the underlying philosophy for how you interpret the evidence? Your theory drives your research instead of the research investigating or throwing out the theory. You have it backwards.
Yeah, in fact, this was the point you were making when you made the fallacious statement about the freshly frozen dinosaur specimen from Antarctica. I'm glad I have the opportunity to go back to that, actually. You used that in the context, in a context that against which I take great umbrage. And that is, you were implying then and implying now that when evolutionary biologists come across a datum or have gotten some experimental results, have the potential to gather a data like carbon dating this alleged dinosaur, fresh dinosaur from the Antarctic, that we're going to find that it's inconsistent with evolutionary theory, and therefore we're not going to date it. And that's what you said in that particular statement. And my umbrage is that this implies that there's some sort of conspiracy among evolutionary biologists, and I assure you that is not the case.
No, I would not accuse of you of being involved in a conspiracy.
We are not trying to modify the data to fit the theory. There's nothing that I would like more than to find some fundamental flaw with the neo-Darwinian theory of evolution. I would become a wealthy person. I would enjoy enormous